Hey, what's up, guys? We are back. It is Tuesday night. We've got another stream here leading up to the waiver wire transactions for tonight. Um, Definitely some stuff to talk about, some takeaways from the games. There are some injuries to touch on, and excuse me. And there's also a free agent acquisition, if you will, that seems to be taking a lot of headlines right now. Maybe the most popular news right now is that Josh Gordon has been reinstated again, and he found a team. It didn't take long. It sounds like he's going to be signing with the Kansas City Chiefs. So, um, he's getting a little bit older. He's had some time away from football again, and I guess it's just like it's a big name going to a good situation. That seems to happen with Kansas City. But Josh, what are you thinking Josh Gordon in a Chiefs uniform looks like for fantasy purposes?
Probably like, let's just move on to somebody else. I mean, the dude was really good like 8 years ago. You know what I mean? But like he was already tied to a good quarterback not that long ago. Like Russell Wilson was the last quarterback he played for, right? And it didn't really work out there. And I'm just I'm struggling to get excited about it. I guess what I would say is, we're gonna get into waivers a little bit later, but for me, he would be someone that if you're in a deep league, you can put a couple bucks on him if you're in Fab, or if you're in waivers. Like, I would not be using my top waiver claim for him, but maybe wait for waivers to clear and pick him and then pick him up and throw him in the interbench and just kind of see what happens. Like, that's kind of where I'm at with him. I'm really not that excited about it. But I understand that there is a very small possibility, in my opinion, that he does become relevant at some point this year. You have to understand that he's been out of football for however long it's been now. Do we really expect him to be activated and out on the field right away? Because I don't think that's reasonable to assume that. I would have to think that he would be at least a couple weeks, if not several weeks, to get acclimated, get in football shape, learn the playbook, and then maybe see the field for a few snaps. I mean, even when he gets to that point, is he going to be, how much is he going to be out there? So there's just a lot of questions. And how patient are you going to be with somebody like that at the end of your bench? And then even when he does get that opportunity, how productive is he going to be? I don't know. That's the part that we don't know, that we're speculating on. But yeah, for me, deeper league stash. If you're in a shallower league, for me, that's going to be a tough sell to put him on my roster.
Yeah, I agree. What's interesting about it for me, I guess looking back on it, is that we were paying attention at one point to what was going to happen between like Mecole Hardman and Demarcus Robinson and Byron Pringle, and there was some intrigue there on someone potentially taking over. I think what we're both kind of thinking then is that Josh Gordon isn't the player that's at this point in his career, or maybe even just coming in with this circumstance, like not somebody that's just going to step into that role and take over like even an AB would today. Like it's more, it almost makes
Right.
it feel like there's more mouths to feed and there isn't a clear number 2 unless name value is really like gonna pull some weight there.
Well, the thing he has going for him is that guys like Pringle and Robinson and Hardman are guys that are seeing the field right now for the Chiefs. So, like, if there's something I could say that I feel most positive about with Gordon, it's that the path as far as the players in front of him to get on the field, I mean, the Chiefs have already shown everybody that they're not really willing to fully commit to any of those guys. If they had been, one of them would have been fantasy relevant by now if they were out on the field all the time with Patrick Mahomes. So he's got that going for him. There's not really the competition in front of him to be able to see the field.
Yeah. Now,
But what has he got left? What is he even as a player anymore?
we're about to find out because there wouldn't really be
Yeah.
I don't know that there's another situation that you'd be as interested in. I mean, he is a down the field kind of guy, but he's got some size. I know he's getting a little bit older, but I think even if you were to ignore the fact that it's the Kansas City Chiefs, like the fact is he is coming into a team that he would be the third receiving option, and the other two guys are stars. But also that his skill set complements both of those guys that they already have two, I think. So, I mean, I think there's a ceiling there that's interesting, but I think the probability isn't there for me.
Sure. Yeah, that's kind of right where I'm at with it too. I agree.
We got some other updates here. Marlon Mack looks like he's going to be traded. There's some weird parts to it for me where like we haven't seen Jonathan Taylor really like just show out yet. He's had some production. He's obviously had some volume there, but like he hasn't done a lot with his opportunities, and the Colts re-signed Nahim Heinz, and now they're moving on from Marlon Mack. Is this like a production, or sorry, is this like an ability issue? Is this more like a volume or opportunity issue? I mean, well, I guess what's your vibe on that?
I mean, it's a good question because I'm not really sure. He came off he's off his injury now. He was on the field for a few snaps a couple weeks ago. Then he was inactive the following week, and now he's being traded. So like a little bit of a confusing sequence there for me. But they're saying he's healthy. Now they also want to trade him. So like, I don't know. But at the same time, like players have to like pass physicals and stuff like that, right? When they get traded, like teams get to evaluate them. So I don't know that they could send a guy like, on one knee or whatever the hell it is, and trade him and get away with it. But so let's just assume health to make the conversation easier. Let's just assume he's healthy. Then what I think's going on here is that like Nahim Heinz offers a little bit of a different change of pace style running back that you typically see in the NFL nowadays with like the third down backs, catching down backs. Jonathan Taylor, although I don't think he's someone who just can't catch the ball. He's just typically like that prototypical for a second down back guy, more of a power back type, but just a lot of speed. And so to me, he's just like a better version than what Marlon Mack is. And then at the same time, Hines kind of brings something that Mack isn't totally. So it sort of puts him in this weird spot. He's also on the last year of his contract with the Colts. They likely didn't plan to re-sign him anyway, especially when they just paid Hines. And obviously they are committed to Jonathan Taylor with that draft pick. So I think they're just looking to get something out of him, maybe. And I don't necessarily think that means that he's totally wash. I mean, maybe people forget, but Marlon Mack looked like he looked like a pretty good running back, before he got hurt and before Jonathan Taylor came in was a thing. He looked like a good running back. Like he was out there producing. Now, granted, Colts had a good offensive line, that's fair, but like Mack himself, I thought, he caught my attention with his play on the field. So I am a little interested depending on where he goes, and that's sort of the problem with all of this is we don't even know if they'll actually be able to trade him. Because have they came out with their asking price? I don't think they have. The other part of that is where does he go? Because he could go somewhere where it's really interesting, or somewhere where it's just a mess. Did you have any just for funsies? Did you have any teams in mind that you think would be like if he went, you'd be like, oh, I'm interested in that?
So when a competitive team is talking about trading a player, the first thing I do is I look at the opposite conference. Some NFC teams, just because I think if the selling team has the choice, they're gonna get a good player away from them. I mean, really, no, it would depend on what the teams think themselves about the situations. But like NFC South is sticking out to me a little bit. A few teams actually, like, so the Falcons haven't got they haven't got a lot of production out of Mike Davis. There's another guy there that has been doing a little more with his touches that we'll talk about later. That kind of stands out to me. The Panthers just lost CMC. They're saying that they don't think he's going to be out all that long, but we can get into that too, I guess. Well, Matt Rule, I guess, is saying that they're not going to put him on IR. They're hoping, was the term that was used, hoping that he's going to be back in less than 3 weeks. I'm not buying it, but if they feel a sense of urgency, maybe that's an opportunity for them to do that, and also add a veteran down, going forward. I mean, they started out 3-0, so they might be in a different mode now than they were in the offseason. And then, I mean, the Saints are still interesting. Kamara's getting a lot of volume and he's looking good. Um, Tony Jones was the number 2 or is the number 2, but they haven't seemed to have been using him as much as they were like a Latavius Murray in a two-headed back or a Mark Ingram either. So, I mean, those 3 teams are kind of interesting to me for different reasons, but I mean, really, that's about it. The rest of these teams seem like they're pretty set on that. Maybe the Rams in the NFC.
The Saints. Oh, sure, yeah. The Saints was one I didn't even think about either. That does actually kind of make some sense. That honestly, that would be one though where to me it would be a bit of a bummer. Like I wouldn't want Marlon Mack unless, as far as like picking him up on my team, unless he was gonna go to a spot where he like could potentially be the guy. Like obviously
Yeah.
you're not guaranteed that when you get traded somewhere, but if he's just gonna be sort of like this a backup that's out there for a little bit, it's just the production with that is so inconsistent more often than not. Like how many backups in the league can you really roster and even consider playing on a weekly basis? It's pretty tough. So, so if he went somewhere like the Saints, to me that would be a bummer. Could he go to the Bucks?
I don't know, man. There's too much going on there already. Like I was biggest on Ronald Jones going into this year, and he just seems to be like the third dude
Yeah.
already. So if he went there,
I tell you,
I'd call that the Niners backfield.
maybe because they just won't quit Leonard Fournette. So, the Rams. If Marlon Mack is still capable of what he did a couple years back, I'm sure the Rams would love to have Marlon Mack over Sony Michel. I could tell you that much. That would be intriguing. And as a Darrell Henderson owner, I would be a little worried if that was to happen. Sony Michel went, and I was like, cool.
That would be that Malcolm Brown role too. I think would be interesting. I would at least assume that Mack's gonna have that Malcolm Brown role.
At least, and then or plus, or like get that to start, and then like I said, assuming if he's like the guy we saw a couple years back, I think he would show enough on the field that he would kind of demand more. He would have to be out on the field more.
Yeah.
So
you know what team I'd probably be most interested in for fit and like a best complement to what they already have? It would be. I don't think he goes there. I haven't really heard them being as interested in some of the other names that are out there. Maybe because they do have some momentum and feel pretty good about where they're at. But if Marlon Mack was running the ball for the Chargers and Eckler was more inclined to take that secondary receiver role that he, had done before he became their main guy, I think he complements Eckler really well, and I think that's a good offense already. Like, that would be pretty interesting to me. Because Mack was hitting some home runs too when he was healthy.
It feels like a situation where both could be usable.
Yeah, exactly. They both have some value. I think it would make the team better. It would make the team more efficient. And I think that would actually be because most of these teams I look at and I'm like, man, they're going to be sharing duties with somebody, no matter no matter what almost. So, that would be interesting to me. Really interesting.
I wouldn't hate that. Yeah, I wouldn't if you were to pick up Marlon Mack as a speculative ad in waivers or whatever. If you saw him land somewhere like the Chargers, I think you'd be pretty happy with the potential there.
Yeah, for sure. The dude was really good. We'll just see. I mean, it could take him a little bit of time too to get going. It's interesting. Right. I don't know why they are suddenly out on him. A similar situation that was kind of interesting to me. Totally different player, different side of the ball, but the Lions decided they were going to move on from Jamie Collins. The guy wasn't playing well, so that could also be a factor. But they said they were going to try to get what they could for him on the trade market. They gave it a few days. They sat him this week, I believe. Healthy scratch. They shopped the market for just short of a week, I think it was. Couldn't get anything for him, and they ended up cutting him. I don't see that happening.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
I don't see that happening with someone like Marlon Mack, unless the team maybe respects him enough to where they feel like they want him to have an opportunity to get some carries, on a contract year. Maybe they're trying to throw him a bone. So that'd be kind of interesting. But if he gets cut, I guess the hardest part's going to be knowing. But I guess I wouldn't assume that it's because he doesn't he's not good. It might just be like a weird value, or teams aren't really feeling the need to offer maybe what the Colts would like to get in return. But I guess I'm
Right.
just saying, I think there's a chance that he could end up getting cut for a good reason. Is kind of my thing. Like sometimes they'll be like, "Hey man, you were here for us for a while. We want you to get your money." Plus it could indirectly benefit the Colts if he were to get paid by a different team next year. Like go spend go spend 10 mil a year on this guy. We good.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, it was interesting. I guess it crossed my mind that he could end up getting cut if they don't see a spot for him and they want him to have an opportunity. But
Sure.
we'll see.
They seem like a nice organization. I mean, maybe there's some bad I'm not thinking of. Well, yeah, there is Peyton Manning. But I was going to say, it was funny because I was going to say, Andrew Luck retired early. They let him keep his money.
True.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe there was some motivation behind that in case he came back. But
I mean, it's not like they're taking money away from him, Calvin Johnson. But yeah, no, it seems like they are an organization that might give a shit about the players.
Try to treat their players the right way. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we're keeping an eye on Marlon Mack. We had another injury that's interesting because we had talked about some players that might potentially get some additional looks for the Patriots, but in a different role. James White has an injury now, and I think that one might have been the harder one to kind of peg as far as who might get additional looks with him being out of the picture.
It is. Yeah, that one's tough, and I don't really have an answer for that outside of it won't be Damian Harris. I don't think he's going to be out there catching passes all of a sudden and being a 3-down back. He'll stay in his role with what it's been. Maybe. Because if someone like Ramondre Stevenson is taken out of the doghouse with this injury and given another shot, maybe he sort of forces the Patriots' hand to play some more. If he doesn't fumble again, I mean, if he fumbles again, he might be joining Marlon Mack. He might be gone. But that this past week, like Brandon Bolden was the guy when James White went down. The thing is, Bolden is always active and on the roster because he's always been a special teams player for the Patriots and has filled in at different times for running back. He was out there on the field. Ramondre Stevenson wasn't. He was inactive. So I wouldn't just assume either it's going to be Brandon Bolden. In fact, I would probably assume it wouldn't be. I would be surprised if it was. Could be, though. I mean, there has been at different times where he has been more involved in the backfield. But he's primarily a special teamer. So is this Ramondre Stevenson? Is it J.J. Taylor, who no one really talks about because there's no reason to? But maybe this is his shot. I don't know. I know when Stevenson wasn't active, Taylor was the one that was activated on the roster. And I don't know. I think he's had a handful of touches. He hasn't been relevant. But it's going to be one of those guys unless they go and pick someone else up. Is Marlon Mack a new Patriot?
Hey,
we will see.
Interesting because it's not somebody that I would peg as a receiving back, but circumstance allows some margin too. Like Marlon Mack could be the best receiving back that the Patriots would have and come into that role.
Yeah, very possibly.
I would be interested if he went there.
Yeah, Damian Harris is going to have to continue to run his ass off and not fumble if he doesn't want to lose his job. Always have to preface it with if it's Marlon Mack from a couple years ago. We don't know what this dude is because we haven't got to see it.
Exactly.
So that's the unfortunate thing there. But yeah, I don't know. Is it Ramondre Stevenson? Is it J.J. Taylor? Is it a running back that they sign? Is Duke Johnson about to be a Patriot? I think he just worked out with the Niners the other day. We don't know. That's a very tough situation to gauge right now.
Duke Johnson would be the best direct comparison to James White, right? For the kid, for just plug and play, we just want to keep things the way they were.
He's always been labeled as that passing down back, and I think for good reason. I think he's a really good pass catcher. But he can't stay on a team either, and there must be a reason for that we don't know. So, but who knows? Maybe. I mean, if he did sign with the Patriots and got that role, I think he would be just as productive as James White was. Unless he's a bum now.
He could be. He could be.
It's just a very weird situation. All I could say for sure, and I'm kind of afraid to go on record saying it, to be honest, but whatever. I definitely wouldn't be signing Brandon Bolden because I don't think that'll be a thing.
I think that's safe. I mean, he's had some touches here and there when they needed him, but yeah, I don't think that's somebody they want to have being a part of their offense on a regular basis.
No.
Kind of interesting, throwing it out there because I've been like waiting for one Houston Texans running back to move, but like Rex Burkhead is in Houston, totally buried. He's like the fourth guy on that list, not even seeing the field. Maybe they swing a little deal there, like, hey.
Yeah, that could happen too.
We like
when you first said that, I thought Philip Lindsay, and I was like, that'd be kind of cool.
Philip Lindsay would be great.
Because I totally forgot that Burkhead was on that team.
I'd be most interested in Philip Lindsay. Like I would have a lot of fantasy interest in Philip Lindsay if he was in New England.
I think he would give a legitimate reason to be a little nervous if you were Damian Harris owner. If you had Damian Harris, I would be a little bit nervous by a Philip Lindsay signing.
Oh, for sure. And coming in, he'd have the receiving looks to give him an opportunity too. It's not something where he'd have to like. Some guys are limited to taking over in practice, right? Or they get like 5 carries, and it's like you better make do with those 5 carries. But Lindsay would be on the field for other reasons, and yeah, I mean that would be. I'd actually be really interested in Philip Lindsay if he went to New England.
I would too.
Got me a little excited. That one came out of nowhere.
Great for Philip Lindsay.
Okay, yeah, we're getting Philip Lindsay. Some other, I don't know. I guess some kind of depressing news, but KJ Hamler tore his ACL. That was the target in Denver that was electric, I guess is the term that I've been using. He had a ton of speed coming out of Penn State. We were talking about if it was going to be his excitement or Tim Patrick's consistency, and now we have our answer.
Yeah, unfortunately, because of this ACL injury, out for the year. So we know who it is now, and he'll probably be coming up in a little bit.
I think it's a good opportunity for the other targets there because there were enough. I mean, we're into 2 injuries on that receiving core already. But Cortland Sutton's a good receiver. Tim Patrick has shown to be good and consistent. Noah Fant, I think, gets a bump. And then you've got those running backs, too. I think they had a lot of nice pieces on that offense, but there were too many, I guess, for what they were probably looking to do on offense. And this, I think, helps for fantasy purposes, at least as far as predictability goes.
It may. Yeah, I mean, I think at least for that other wide receiver that's on that team, it would just makes me a little more comfortable buying in, just because I think even though he hadn't showed it yet, I think Hamler, with a little bit of time, maybe had the potential to at least eat in to the work some, or maybe even be the number 2. But that is no longer an option, so it makes things a little more clear there.
Definitely does. Talking about other banged up receivers, Kenny Galladay still sucks.
Is he hurt?
He is not hurt. He's the only one that's not hurt. Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard were both banged up. So Ingram and Galladay got a little more volume, I think, than they might have normally. And there was minimal production from either. So take from that what you will. I don't know. I think I'm like all the way out on Galladay. He had a decent game. I know I had mentioned on the last stream that we should be starting him over a couple of guys. That was a lot of opportunity for me. Also investing in the chance of a bounce back because he is a good player. But I don't know, man. With those other guys out, it may force Daniel Jones to be more interested in Kenny Galladay, but kind of out. I'm out on that. I've been out on that, but I guess it was just worth updating. I think that it got even worse when you see the other 2 receivers in that situation out of the game, and Kenny Galladay still has a mediocre performance. It's just not encouraging.
I totally agree. Can't play the guy right now, right?
No, no, and I think you're stuck with him now. I think we were saying it was going to be another week, maybe two. You know, if he had this stat line with Slayton and Shepard healthy, I think it feels a little bit different to people. But when you know that he was the only receiver out there, you know those injuries happened in the game, so it's not like they had a chance to dress other guys or get some practice reps either. Um, I think it just has a much uglier feel to see him go for what was it like 5 and 67 or something.
Right. Do we know? Do we know the extent of either one of those guys' injuries? They were both hamstrings. Do we know? I mean, I guess with that we won't probably, right? Because that's just going to be a wait and see situation.
Yeah, I don't know if any time frames have been offered for either of those guys.
Right. So what do you think? I'll throw it out there. It's like the second week in a row. I feel like I'm like coming across as a fan of this guy, which I'm not necessarily. I'm a fan of what he could be, but he just never showed it. Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram, to me, sort of when I think about targets with the distribution between those guys, I feel like if one of them's out, the other is a direct benefit. Sometimes I think it's hard to really predict where targets are going to go when somebody goes down. But to me, I think that's one where I would feel a little bit comfortable saying that. So if Sterling Shepard is out, Evan Ingram, it was his first week back this past week. So he's got another week to kind of get back into the swing of things again. Assuming that he doesn't get hurt in practice, would you be interested in Evan Ingram at all if you're in a deeper league and it's just a total flyer if you're hurting at tight end? Just kind of see what happens there. I mean, hey, this guy was a top 5 tight end before, and he was a high draft pick the following year, and then he sucked. I think Daniel Jones is partly to blame for that too, and he is still the quarterback, so situation's kind of the same. But hey, maybe it could work. I don't know. Just throwing it out there.
Well, it's been a carousel for the bottom end of the tight end one world in fantasy this year. I mean, there were a handful of guys that were interesting for different reasons, and then you look at them and they've all kind of taken turns having games and disappearing. Like of that group, Mike Gesicki had the best week I think this week. He had 10 targets I want to say in a decent game.
More. I had like 12. It was crazy.
Yeah. So I mean, like that was a great game for him, but there's also been some disappointing games for him, and it's just an example. But there's been some disappointing games for everybody out there. I think Evan Ingram's upside definitely justifies taking him if you're in need of a tight end, or stashing him if maybe you want to see what happens. You're holding on to him for some trade bait, or sometimes you have a tight end out there that has some injury issues. I know there's been some people concerned with George Kittle this year. He had a good game this week, but I understand that. Or Gronk just had that back injury. I mean, you might already be relying on Gronk pretty heavily with the touchdowns this year, but I drafted Gronk last year, and I didn't handcuff him, but I made it a point to go get somebody else I felt decent about behind him because I just was a little worried about it.
Just given his extensive history.
Yeah, so like I think Evan Ingram's definitely justifiable in all of those situations, and I mean we could be 3 weeks from now talking about like how did this guy go undrafted, or how did he end up in the situation he was in.
Well, I mean, you bring up a good point. It's like you said, like tight end is just a weird position where most guys are just inconsistent, and it kind of feels like you're throwing a dart and hoping to hit that week. So yeah, do you pick up Evan Ingram? Gesicki's obviously a little bit more owned, but he's been dropped, over the last couple of weeks because he hasn't really been doing anything. So he's available in a lot more leagues now. Do you pick a guy up like him instead? Do you pick up a Tyler Conklin that had a random big game this past week? So yeah, it's sort of like if you're in the tight end, if you're shopping for a tight end, it's sort of like how do you pick one? Evan Ingram, though, I think should maybe at least be in that mix, and just understanding that, of course, this is more likely to not work out than it is to work out. But yeah, if he goes out there and has, 90 yards and gets a bunch of targets from Daniel Jones, like now it's a competitive market for him. Whereas right now, nobody really cares.
Yeah, for sure. Another name since we're on the Giants, Barkley looked like he had some more efficiency again this week. I don't think it at least might have calmed the nerves of some of the Barkley owners. It's not like a classic Barkley performance, but I mean,
Right.
I thought he was decent out there for the Giants. Like, I don't know what to think about the Giants as a whole, but I don't know. I mean, he had a game. I think you probably were hoping for more with the matchup, but he had a good game.
You have to feel great if you have Saquon Barkley compared to how you felt just 2 weeks ago. And so you just take that with like, hey, cool. Maybe I've got my guy here. Obviously, you're starting him, and I think people already were last week, but of course there was some worry, and a little bit of that has subsided, but still gonna have that worry in the back of my mind with him. The matchup was nice. For me, I want to see several weeks of this sustained workload and touches, see how he holds up. But yeah, overall positive vibes. You're feeling much better about Barkley right now.
Yeah, the efficiency I guess wasn't necessarily there, but his volume did go up quite a bit from last week, so definitely
Yeah,
encouraging.
involved in the pass game again. Got some of his production from there. Like that's what you want to see.
Yeah, for sure. Another guy that might have been in the same situation as far as for fantasy owners coming into this week had a good game. Zeke Elliott was somebody that we didn't really know how to feel about. Kind of felt like you might have been stuck with him. He ends up having a good game. We've both been talking about how you just kind of watch the games and you don't really know how to feel about the player himself. I actually heard one video, or I can't remember. I was watching something. They mentioned, or it was one of the broadcasters, I think, from last night, from the game when I was watching it, referred to Tony Pollard as a 1A, 1B scenario. The fact that that was being thrown out there was interesting to me, too. So maybe this is like a sell high on Zeke. I mean, if you have Zeke, are you trying to move him, or I mean, what do we do here? He had a good game, but what does that mean for you as a fantasy owner?
If you can sell high, and by that I mean if you can get something really nice back in return, then yes, I would do it. But I wouldn't just sell to sell. Because I mean, it kind of goes back to what we've already said before about that backfield, but Zeke is going to stay involved. He can have games like this. But if you're watching the Cowboys play, Zeke is not prime Zeke anymore. And people have to let that go because he just isn't. And not only that, but he's got a guy behind him that, I mean, if Zeke didn't have all of this history that Zeke has had, like if these guys were on the roster just for the brand new today, like Pollard's probably the 1A to that team because at this point he is so much more electric than Zeke is. And he's just not as big as Zeke. He probably doesn't have as much power, but everything else, he to me looks like the guy that should be getting more of the work at this point. So if you can sell high on Zeke, do it. But like if you're hurting at running back and you can't get one in return, or if you're just looking to sell, that's what I wouldn't do, if that makes sense.
Well, let's play a game. How
Oh, you're gonna give me a name.
it's gonna? Well, we're gonna play. It's gonna be. We're gonna play limbo. Okay. How low can you go? So there's some names out here that we're lower on that I just kind of crossed my mind, and then I guess depending on how this goes, I might throw a couple more out there.
Okay.
So draft capital's out the window, I think, for us at this point. But
Don't care about it. Yep.
this guy was going shortly after Zeke or right around the same time as Zeke in drafts. Somebody that we've also not been super high on, but also has been pretty low for other fantasy owners too. Do you trade Zeke for Clyde Edwards-Hilaire?
No.
You like Zeke more?
Nope. I like Zeke more than Clyde.
Is
I'm not, like I said, I'm not super down on Zeke because I still think he's all right, and I think he'll stay involved. You know how I feel about CEH. I'm not interested.
What about somebody that we're both higher on than where he was drafted, who also had a big week this week, Kareem Hunt.
Uh, Probably not. I'd probably rather still have Zeke, but that's a hell of a lot closer for me than CH is. I would rather have Kareem Hunt than Zeke, and Kareem Hunt's technically a backup running back.
Yeah.
But but um, yeah, that one's a lot closer to me actually, because I mean, I mean, I guess Zeke did get more work this past week, but the week before that, like, wasn't Zeke in a timeshare, like a pretty hefty timeshare too? Um, Probably still keep Zeke, but you're getting closer.
Last one because it's somewhere between Kareem Hunt and CEH, I think. Jonathan Taylor.
Probably Jonathan Taylor.
Really?
Yeah, I think I'd rather have Jonathan Taylor. Um,
Especially, I think the tiebreaker would be like if you're in a keeper or dynasty league. I think that would be obvious.
if you're in a keeper league, it's a no doubter, yeah. But even in redraft, I think I want Jonathan Taylor over Zeke.
It's interesting. It helps us put a. I guess it helps like viewers just kind of put a value on the situation where it's like if you can get something for him, you should.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
yeah, sure.
I think there's some other players like maybe we're both pretty far out on Clyde, but like if you don't value Kareem Hunt as high as we do, but maybe you're getting an extra piece back, like still think that might be considerable. But overall, like I agree with that.
Yeah, like if you got Kareem Hunt and like a solid wide receiver as well, that if you're a wide receiver needy team or something like that, and uh, yeah, I I would be willing to do something like that. I normally don't like being the one to trade the one for twos and be the one getting the two back. Because usually you feel like, you're letting the quote best player go in that trade, which is, you know how that goes. We don't like doing that.
Oh yeah,
Usually you like being the one to trade two players and get one back. But in that case, that might be somebody thinking they're getting a Zeke that they're not getting,
true.
and you might just be taking advantage.
Well, and with as low as value trade value is for like quarterbacks and the non-elite tight ends too, like that might be a great opportunity for you to catch an upgrade at one of those positions too, where it's like trade trade
Right.
value for quarterbacks is so low that you might be able to swing
Yeah.
like a maybe
Give
maybe
me
you
Josh Allen and Kareem Hunt if I need a quarterback. I'm doing it all day for Zeke.
right, and you take my guy
But I don't know
that's
if you can
totally
make that happen.
startable but not quite. Yeah,
That depends on the league. In leagues we're in, quarterbacks are not valued as much. So, like, if someone actually really was buying into Zeke still, that could be a trade that could actually potentially happen. But maybe in a lot of leagues where people like value quarterback more, shit like that probably doesn't happen. Yeah.
it's good news. It's good news he had a good game. I agree. I agree on everything else. I like to see that he had a good game because we were both saying it's kind of sad to watch if this is how
Yeah.
it's going to play
Eh,
out.
like I said, it's sort of like a don't hear what we're not saying thing. This isn't a just sell to sell. Which I'm glad you actually brought some of those running backs up because I didn't, it kind of even puts it into perspective for me where I'm at with them. Um, it's not just a sell to sell. He still has plenty of value. You're still starting him if you have him. But yeah, it's just not that top tier elite, I should say elite guy anymore. Isn't the case.
True. Um, what do we have? We have another running back. If you view him as such, Cordero Patterson is somebody that's kind of creeping into my radar. He is getting a decent amount of volume out of that Atlanta backfield. I think it's a really weird thing to talk about. I think we've touched on it a couple of times, but it's real now. Like he's here.
It really is real, which is just ridiculous to say that and that actually be a thing. But it is, man. It's a thing. He is here. His role seems to be defined at this point. He's not going away. If you drafted Mike Davis, I hope you have another situation that another option. Maybe you do have Patterson yourself. the problem here, which was a point you had brought up a couple weeks ago at this point about, or maybe was it after that first week when Patterson was involved right away? Was, is that going to be a thing moving forward? Because if so, like, you were drafting not Patterson, you were drafting Mike Davis, hoping that he was just the dude and there was no one else. That's what you were hoping for, and that's just simply not the case. And not only that, like, Patterson is being productive, like he's actually being productive on the field. So the Falcons have no reason not to continue to use him. It's been hard for me to want to even think about it, because what I know about Patterson is, just when you think like maybe you can play this guy on your roster, he did this with the Bears too. At different times he's done this, and then
the Patriots, I think.
Yeah, and then ultimately, it leads to nowhere, which is why even like coming into this draft, no one's talking about Cordero Patterson. There's a reason for that, but the Falcons seem to have found a role for him that's working right now. And will it work for the rest of this year? I don't know. Maybe there's a world where Mike Davis picks it up. But if I had to bet on it going forward, I'm going to assume that what we've seen so far is what it is, and is going to continue to be that. So that means that Patterson has value.
And I think as a result, maybe the most important news with Cordero Patterson's involvement is that Mike Davis isn't what we wanted him to be. Yeah, like you had said,
right.
Like hopefully you have some other plans if you drafted Mike Davis. Totally agree. I think he's gonna suffer a lot from this, even if Patterson isn't necessarily getting the production that you would want out of a running back. But like for sure in PPR leagues, I'm like pretty interested in Patterson at this point. Part of it because of scarcity at the position and free agents and waivers. But I mean the dude's been involved. He's getting that kind of receiving volume that some of those receiving specialists are getting that keep them relevant in PPR leagues. So he's not doing like J.D. McKissick things out there. He didn't have, 19 targets that Najee Harris had this week, but
yeah.
I mean, his involvement is there. It's been steady through 3 weeks, so definitely something that I'd be keeping an eye on. And I'd really be thinking about putting him on your bench if you do have Mike Davis. I agree with that. But I might be thinking about it even beyond that if you're thin at running back or you're really trying to make a move that won't cost you much. I don't think you're necessarily going to have to use a higher waiver claim to get him. I think you can still keep your spot on the waiver list. If you're in Fab, I think you could get him for a $0 bid with some upside down the stretch and make that budget last a little bit longer. So there's definitely value in adding those guys a week or two early.
Talking about Patterson?
Yeah.
I think I know in ESPN leagues anyway, he went up 60% ownership in the past week. So
he's
last
only
week,
available in 25%, yeah.
Yeah, for ESPN, if he's still out there, check, because yes, he should be added if he was in your league. I agree with you. It's sort of one of those things where, like, of course there can be variation and it could be a little up and down. It's not something you can just like. He's certainly not a guy you can feel super safe with. But if you need some running back help, like, you can play him. You can start him, especially if you're in full PPR. Then that or any sort of PPR format, then that changes things some. So
definitely, yeah. His ownership went up a lot. Earlier than I would have expected it to, for sure.
Yeah, I actually didn't know exactly what it was. I was surprised to see it go up as much as it did. But yep.
Yeah, definitely keep an eye on that, or not keep an eye on it. Make a move, I guess. Yeah, we're getting to that point now where you're gonna have to get him if he is available. Even if you're not totally sold, if you have some interest, you gotta do it now if you want to, for sure. And we've got a classic here. Getting better with age, maybe. But Emmanuel Sanders had a couple touchdowns this week. He's somebody that was seemingly off the radar as well, and somebody that I'm now interested in.
Yeah, I love Emmanuel Sanders, man. That dude's been good for so long. He's 34 years old. He's 34. And he's out here making plays. The thing I'm most frustrated in with Emmanuel Sanders is that I let all the noise talk me out of taking him at the end of drafts because he was going undrafted. Well, hell, not only going undrafted. I mean, what is his ownership? I actually have it in front of me. this is ESPN leagues. Let me check 1 sec here. 32% in ESPN leagues. Unfortunately, happens to be owned in our leagues. I don't know that there's going to be every week. Like I'm not ready to say yet that you can confidently start Emmanuel Sanders every week. But of course, with Josh Allen and the Bills offense, that's a nice offense to be tied to if you have wide receivers on that team. Cole Beasley obviously has relevance. Obviously Stephon Diggs. But John Brown had relevance for the majority of last year. And then there was a stint towards the end of the year where Gabriel Davis was relevant. He's still there, but to this point, seems like the odd man out. He has big splash plays here and there, and he'll probably continue to do that. And that's, between him and Cole Beasley, that's why I say, like, I don't know if you can put Sanders in your line. I mean, you can start Sanders. I guess I'm not saying that. Like, you can flex him. But you just can't think that that's safe yet. But if he does this again and for another week, especially for another 2 weeks, if he becomes a guy that Josh Allen is just continuing to look for and target, then man, I'm definitely wanting to pick that guy up if he's available in your league. No doubt about it. And if you have him, congratulations. But yeah, I'm just not ready to say yet, like, you've got a guy. But you might. You might have a guy.
Yeah, I mean, he's had his targets over through 3 games have been 6 targets, 6 targets, and 8 targets. And so, that's pretty solid volume. I had mentioned
that offense.
I think I had mentioned that I was just hoping to see him do more with the targets, because I think that's plenty to stay fantasy relevant, but the efficiency wasn't quite there. And then he comes back with 2 touchdowns, so just great sign to see him do that.
The one was a great catch too. Had to dig the ball out. It was kind of a low ball. I like me some Emmanuel Sanders.
On an offense that looks like it's picking up where it left off last year and
definitely
has a lot going on for defenses to be worried about. So, yeah, huge.
Yeah. Josh Allen balled last week.
What else do we got? We had some mixed reviews, which I think is a good thing for the stream, but Brandon Nyuk was more involved. It looked like they were more interested in using him this week. I was a little bummed out with what he did with those looks, but are we starting to get a little excited if we've been stashing him? I mean, he was available. You picked him up in our league, so he might be sitting there for a few people because somebody maybe gave up on him.
Yeah, someone in our league gave up on him, and I felt strong enough about the potential, the possibility that I put a decent amount of my fab on him. But am I excited? Not yet. Not really. I'm happy to see that he was on the field for most of the game. That's step 1. Step 2 was he got some looks, dropped a couple more balls. A little bit of a downside there. He showed that in preseason some. Not really sure what's going on with that. Don't really remember that being an issue from last season. But I look at this as progress. This is progress. And I don't really like Jimmy Garoppolo all that much, and I'm not necessarily sold on Trey Lance when it comes to the pass catchers for the Niners. But look, Debo's been able to get it done. And not only that, he's had a couple big weeks, one really big week. I think that there's potential here. I think it's still a hold situation. It's progress. I was encouraged by what I saw. I'm still not starting him yet, and but I'm just hopeful that this will continue to improve. And you feel differently about it, so tell me what you think.
Well, I mean, I like the player, and I liked the situation, and I liked a lot about what I was looking for with Brandon Nayuk early this year, and I think a lot. I just think that there have been a lot of opportunities for that to change. one of the balls that went his way got on him quick, and the DB, did deflect the ball a little bit at the last second. So like I saw that and I was like, okay, I'm not going to really hold that against him too bad. And then it was like on the next drive, he had one that was also through a tight window. Some visibility can be an issue. You never know like exactly where maybe like a player's arm is coming through his vision. I don't know. Maybe maybe he got screened would be the term for it. But there was another one that I just thought he should have had on the next drive too, and I was like, man, they've already been hesitant on him, coming into the year so far, and then
Mhm.
he just missed a couple opportunities that I thought would have allowed him to um, really get back into that role he had claimed last year. So we'll see. I mean, that's not to say that he loses those opportunities, and if he catches both of those balls I'm referring to this week, I mean, I'm singing a totally different tune. I'm like, man, they gave him they gave him a handful of looks and he looked really good. He had a couple nice catches. So um,
Right.
we'll see. My
Worst case scenario is so for context, Sherfield that shared snaps with Ayuk in week 1, and people were losing their mind about that. He played a entire 2 snaps, I believe it was, in that game. So worst case scenario would be that they're splitting snaps this next week. And then I'm like, okay, this is still the same situation. And last week was just, I don't even know. But if we see another week of him on the field for most of the game, the majority of the game, I think he could potentially have himself a game against Seattle next week.
Definitely a good player. Definitely something that you're keeping an eye on. If you have him, you're still holding on to him. Um, don't drop him. I think he's still got a lot to offer if he does catch on, even if
Hmm.
it's a little later than we want it to be. Um,
Right.
Good player.
We've been practicing patience, something that's very hard to have in fantasy football, but gotta have patience sometimes with some of these guys. This is not at all how we expected things to start. Let's just have some more patience before we bail. We want to bail by week 5, fine. Just don't bail yet.
Yeah. And there's sometimes the way that I like to think about it is like if I weren't the guy holding on to a Brandon Nyuk this year and I saw him show up on the waivers, like I would
Yeah.
probably would I be interested or wouldn't I? And like if the answer is yeah, I would be the guy picking him up if I wasn't staring at him every week when I'm setting my lineup. Like you're probably holding on to him. And I would.
Right.
I would with Dayuk, but I'm still hoping I really want him to have a good game soon.
Uh, let's jump over to chat real quick. We got a question. Should I add Madison or Tim Patrick? So we were getting into waivers here pretty soon, but Tim Patrick, yes. I'll let Dub kind of have his opinion on it real quick too, but I would add Tim Patrick. He, the kind of the I think we said after the first week that you should add Tim Patrick and KJ Hamler. Hamler's now out of the picture. Tim Patrick has done nothing but produce to some extent so far. It's been low volume with the touchdowns, but this past week he had 5 catches and 90 something yards, I think. He should be added. He's the clear number 2 for the Broncos. And if you need wide receiver help, I would add him. Dub and Madison too. The thing with Madison is, I mean, if you have Dalvin Cook, yes, but if you don't have Dalvin Cook, I mean, Madison looked actually pretty damn good in this past game. But if Cook's back, then Madison's irrelevant again. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. You go ahead with that, Dub, and then if you want to go with the next one too.
Well, the other comments are kind of giving us an idea for the roster.
Oh, oh, Dub, are you muted? Aw, man. Did we lose the stream?
Dubs drop.
I don't know. I can still hear myself on stream. So I'll go ahead and keep going because I don't know if the stream can hear Dub or not, but I don't think so. So I got Javonta Williams, Aaron Jones, Robinson, and Michael Carter at running back. If you don't have Dalvin Cook, I would rather be adding Tim Patrick over Madison in that situation. My wideouts are Hill, Justin Jefferson, DJ Moore, A-Rob, and Waddle. Good wide receivers group for the most part there, but Robinson's production has been it's been pretty rocky so far. So I can understand wanting to add another one. For me, I would add Tim Patrick just because I think that's going to be something that you could be reliable and consistent for at least a little while until Judy comes back. With Madison, it's just totally dependent on what Dalvin's doing. Dub, are you there? Williams, Aaron Jones. He's got Robinson. He's also got Michael Carter, which is a nice stash. And
I don't think he needs Madison
right.
with those running backs.
Yeah, I mean Madison is just like a really nice spot start
He's
if
got
Dalvin's
Hill,
not playing, right?
Jefferson, Moore. Yeah. He's got Hill, Jefferson, Moore. Who's A-Rob? Waddle.
Allen
Allen
Robinson
Robinson.
and Waddle. Yep.
Gee. I mean, you can pick. If that was me, I would pick either one up if you were wanting to. Like if you have bench spots or if you have someone down there that you don't really care about, throw them on there. But with those, you're not throwing either one of them in the lineup. I don't think.
Probably not. Probably not. But because obviously, it's Hill, it's Justin Jefferson, it's DJ Moore they're in your lineup. And Indiana Robinson you can play, but I'd understand if you'd want to sit Robinson for a week because it's been kind of tough for him. But
Yeah, but either there, I mean, I would still take Waddle over Tim Patrick
over to
starting.
Patrick. Yeah. They're a little bit closer for me, Patrick and Waddle is.
They
I
are.
like Waddle as a player more, that's for sure. But
Waddle had what? It was like 13 targets last week.
it's ridiculous. Dude, he had like 12 catches or something. They need to start sending that dude downfield. I don't get it.
I mean, yeah, but if he is that little slot guy that just catches little 3-yard passes and gets 4 yards afterwards, I would take 7 catches for 50 yards. You know what I
Right.
mean? I mean,
Yeah, I hear you. Oh, dude, full PPR, you're loving that.
oh my gosh.
Jeez,
Yeah.
dude. Should I do Amari, Gibson, Pitts? Oh, it's a trade question.
Oh.
Okay, so Amari Cooper, Gibson, and Pitts for Kelsey and Kareem Hunt. You've got Mahomes, so you get a nice stack.
I mean, that's a killer stack.
So you're giving up Amari essentially. You're swapping Gibson with Kareem Hunt, and you're swapping Pitts for Kelsey. I do think that Gibson is an upgrade from Hunt for sure, but the upgrade you're getting from Kelsey, I mean, Kelsey is such a huge advantage to have at the tight end position. So giving up Amari's tough though, man. You would have to be.
I mean, if you're decent in wide receiver without Amari,
yeah,
I'd say run it, but I don't think you're winning that
trade. Yeah, I probably agree. I think probably like losing Amari to get that is probably too much for me. I know Amari. Amari had a pretty disappointing week, right?
Yeah, he only had one good week, and that was week 1. And then last week he went down on the last play of the game with a rib injury.
Yeah.
Dak is
Yes.
showing that he wants CD
Yeah,
production-wise more.
and I can understand having frustrations with Amari if you have him right now, but at the end of the day, I think that's going to come back around. Assuming Amari can stay healthy, but you can say that about any player. He's too good of a wide receiver, and he's going to have some really nice weeks. I probably wouldn't do that trade because Gibson is also. I would prefer, even though I like Kareem Hunt, I would prefer Gibson over Kareem Hunt.
Well, and you might not be done talking to the guy yet either. Like, you might be at a position where if he has a receiver that you like that maybe he's down on, that makes a difference for you. Like, I might not say like we're done talking, but like what else could I get back in this deal? You know?
Right. No doubt.
I
Yeah,
think
if you can get, agree, totally agree.
if you can get, I mean, and it's all about value too. Like this guy might be looking at your team and he might be bigger on Pitts than you realize too. So like, I would just go back and forth a couple times to try to figure out where the value is for him and for you, and just see like, or well, for them and for you, sorry, and just see, you know, if there's a receiver that maybe you're a little bigger on than they are, that makes it an even trade. But yeah, it's interesting. Plus, we've been talking more this year than usual about quarterback and receiver stacks, but like that would be pretty sexy, right?
Yeah, I mean that's certainly like I saw you said he had Mahomes. I'm like, that is a really nice stack.
In full PPR, I mean, Kelsey gets 8 catches a game.
I know. You're also selling Pitts on his was it a 2-catch performance? So
Yeah, but he also only had 3 targets.
right. So I'm just trying to put myself in the mind, like if I had those players, it's very week to week, and your mind can trick you sometimes and make you feel really down and really up on a guy. Pitts could I definitely like his season long outlook. Not Kelsey, but it should be better than what it was last week for him. So I can agree with what Dub said. You know, if you can try to work a receiver in there that's respectable, that's probably the route that I would look.
Yeah,
Yep.
my assumption is that if somebody's interested in getting Pitts back, then they probably still value him quite a bit. So I
Right,
think that's
exactly.
the information that you're going to try to work with is like, yeah, we know that Pitts had a disappointing week. We know he hasn't been a total freak yet, which could come, but like I think that situation, if it was offered to you, means that person is pretty interested in Pitts still.
Is
The,
there?
the other one we were looking at, we said probably where did we go? We were looking at Madison versus Patrick. I had to I had to disable and re-enable my mic. That was the issue. So
It's all right. Cameron and I we covered that one.
okay, cool.
I guess in what we said, I imagine you probably feel the same way.
I do
Sure.
want to reiterate through your chat though. It's Dubs. I've never heard you called Doug.
Oh, that's
Oh,
probably. I mean, I can understand where that would
Oh,
come in.
100%.
Start one, and I'm assuming that means full PPR. Robinson, Doug is back.
yeah.
We're gonna start
guy.
calling him. We're gonna start calling Dubs, Doug. We're gonna start doing that from now
I can roll with that.
on. Robinson, Javonte Williams, and Michael Carter. So I don't have the schedules right in front of me. I haven't even got to that point yet in the week. I'll pull them up real quick for you. But what I do know is I'm not starting Michael Carter, even though I think Michael Carter is a nice stash to have, and he was actually a name I was going to mention in waivers because he's still relatively low, like pretty low owned. I think he should be a stash, so I'm glad you have him. But I can't imagine myself starting him this week.
On the surface, I'm leaning James Robinson. They play at home against the Cardinals, but I agree. Michael Carter, we're still waiting on. We're really liking what we're seeing with Michael Carter. There's a lot of light at the end of the tunnel for him. I just don't think we're there yet. But we're getting there, and we're getting there faster than I had expected. I think Michael Carter, he's coming, and it's slow and steady, and that's a really good thing. Javonte Williams, they're in Denver against the
Ravens.
Jets. Oh, I'm on week 3. I was gonna say that matchup sounded familiar. Timeout.
They play the Broncos. Play the the Broncos play the Ravens, and the Jags play the Bengals.
Bengals defense has been better than expected, right?
They have been. They have been, and Carlos Hyde was still involved this past week. I know Robinson had the touchdown, which was nice. He had better production this past week. And Javonte Williams is in a full-on split in a tough matchup. It's a really close one between those two.
James Robinson. I think I'm still going James Robinson.
I probably am too. I think I would go Robinson as well. Because he's also proven to be, for what it's worth, he's proven to be the guy that's going to be, he gets a few targets, he gets a few looks. Carlos Hyde really isn't that guy. When when the Jags are down, for instance, Robinson's been in. So I probably go with Robinson as well.
Jags have been down like most of the season. It's been a kind of a wreck over there. Those receivers are looking nice, though.
Really bad. It's like they might as well have Blake Bortles over there.
Bro,
same situation.
Do you remember the year that I had him, though, and he ended up finishing as like a quarterback 6 or 5 just from volume alone? Like, they were so bad.
So stupid.
They were so bad.
So bad. And Bortles would have 6.5 points until the fourth quarter.
Every game. And they had Allen
Worst.
Robinson and Allen Heinz. They had the Allen brothers out there just getting balls, dude. Oh,
Yeah.
man. I remember that because I've told you guys, I've said it on stream a few times, but like a quarterback with like a bad defense is like a killer combo sometimes. It just works.
I know. I just remember that year when you had him, and I'm like, you were just like, just don't watch the games, bro. Just don't watch the games. just look at the stats at the end. I'm like, he's so bad.
Yep. And then you get a couple touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and you're like, there it is. I knew it. Oh. Where are we at with the Broncos backfield, though? Like, Javonte Williams it's just a 50-50, right? And you're just hoping you're going to catch the guy that has his week?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is, like this past week, for instance, Melvin Gordon, that touchdown that Javonte Williams had, Melvin Gordon got them down there. And then he actually got the first carry to score. And it looked like he was going to, and then he got absolutely blown up. Like, the hit he took was one of the best hits I've seen so far this year. Then he goes off the field, Williams comes on the field, and he gets an easy score. Like, it wasn't even like that. It wasn't an impressive run or anything. It was there for him. Outside, like, it's a full-on split for sure, and Melvin Gordon still looks good. He looks good on the field. He's not going anywhere. At least not for a little while. I mean, if I had to guess, probably not for the entire year. He's not going anywhere. So, could be wrong. It's not that Javonte Williams doesn't look good either. He looks fine. But I just think that, if you drafted Williams, the unfortunate truth is that Melvin Gordon is a thing still, and I don't think he's going to go away because he himself can still make shit happen on the field. So,
are we looking at? Do you think there's a chance that this ends up being similar to? I don't want to say it's going to be the same thing, but is there a chance that ends up being similar to the Browns situation? Because I do think they're both good.
Yeah, like a less productive version of that.
It's like if you were to buy the Browns backfield on Wish. No, not that
bad. Yeah, kind of something like that. Because obviously, I don't think any of those guys are Nick Chubb, and I mean Kareem Hunt himself is still a pretty damn good running back.
Agreed.
So yeah, you're getting a lesser version of a similar type of situation. They're both good running backs. I like Melvin Gordon. I like Javonte Williams, but neither one of those guys is taken over. Not anytime soon.
I pulled up the standings just to double check, right? Because I was thinking like, man, I think the Broncos are 3-0 right now, and they are.
Mm-hmm.
But something that stood out here, that
Their schedule.
well, no, while I had the standings pulled up, there's a category here that stands out to me, okay? They are currently tied for first in the league in point differential with the Buffalo Bills. And it hasn't felt like that.
Really?
Yeah. They've only given up 26 points. That's what's happening.
Well, right. So let me pull up, and then we can move on from the Broncos. But I mean, they've played.
I was gonna say that's what I was gonna say is their strength of schedule right there, because they did play the Jets, Jacksonville, and the Giants.
There you go.
Perfect.
So, I mean, yes, that is a great stat, but there's no way that stays.
Hey, the first two were on the road.
Hey, if you have the Broncos defense, though, you sell them right now.
I don't know. I mean, are we really that afraid of the Steelers? They're playing the Ravens this week. Broncos are, but next week they're playing the Steelers.
No, but they
Should
do
we be
have a
Steelers?
they have
I
a
don't think
very they have a very mediocre schedule coming up, but it could turn the wrong way fast.
Yeah.
I mean, they got Baltimore then Pittsburgh, sure. Las Vegas, I mean, Derek Carr could do his thing. He could. I'm just
I'm waiting
saying,
for
there's
Derek Carr to. I totally am with you because based off what we've seen, I'm still waiting for Derek Carr to fall flat on his face.
yeah, no,
It's
I
gotta
feel
come.
you.
Looks
I'm
like
just
he
Maybe
already
not, though.
has. Have you seen like his face is kind of flat.
It's
Mhm.
true.
But then after that, they still have Cleveland, Washington, Dallas, and Philly before their bye. And all
Yeah.
of those offenses aren't terrible.
I wouldn't really want to go against the Chargers right now. I feel like
No.
they might start picking shit up.
Mike
And
Williams
Herbert's the
is
real deal.
like really coming into his own too.
Yeah, definitely. We got Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. Eckler's still dangerous, catching the ball in the backfield, and honestly, he even had some nice runs this past week. And Herbert's the real deal. Like Chargers, I wouldn't want to play against them. So what do we? You were saying, where are we at? Do we have anything else before we wanted to like maybe look into some more of these names to add?
Oh yeah. Okay. So I had one other thing wrote down that wasn't going to be like a specific waiver target. Dallas Goedert had a big catch this week, and then it was all Zach Ertz afterwards. What? Why? Just why? He had like
Why
what, a
is it-
31 or 34 yard catch Goddard did, and then it was like gone.
Dude, it's so frustrating. My only logical reason I can think for why you would involve Zach Ertz in your game plan is because the defense will just completely ignore him. It's the only thing I could think of that makes any sense.
Like
He-
like it's so obvious that he's not a threat that that they're
They
using it to their advantage.
They don't even put anybody on him. And the Eagles have picked up on it, and they're like, "Hey, man, if we put Ertz out there, like he runs a route, and they don't even put a guy on him." It's the only thing I could think of. That makes sense.
I mean, if they're
He's
gonna
not-
be
he-
loyal to him, and I'm Dallas Goedert, like, might I not? I might be like demanding a trade. Like, hey man, it's cool that's your boy and all, but like, I've been waiting for what 3-4 years now. Like, I gotta get
Yeah.
mine somewhere.
He's just gonna be there and be involved, and yeah, I have Dallas Goedert. I have Logan Thomas, but Dallas Goedert went super late in our particular draft, so I drafted him. Depending on who's available on waivers in even a league like ours, to me he's cuttable at this point, especially when you look at some of the other tight ends that are available across all leagues that could pop any week. If you only have Dallas Goedert on your team, he's the only tight end you have, I would be looking to add somebody, or trying to make some sort of trade or something like that. But you can't feel safe, confident about having Dallas Goedert, unfortunately, and it's not because of the player; it's the situation. He's gonna have some weeks, though. That's the frustrating thing about this. Like Dallas Goedert's definitely gonna have some weeks where he puts up a nice stat line, has a good game. How the hell are you gonna predict it? How are you gonna predict it?
No, and it would be even if he had some more volume and Ertz wasn't in the picture at all, like that could add a couple more big games for him and make him like a real fantasy threat. I was just frustrated because I saw it and I was like, when I saw that first catch, I was like, man, he might like this might be one of those games, and then like they just walked away from that. It was like, I don't know, I just didn't get it. I didn't get it at all. So I just wanted to bring that up because it's a bummer. I agree. It's part of the reason I brought it up. Is like, it's just a bummer for
Yeah.
the player who deserves more, who's earned more, who hasn't really gotten his shake. But
Yeah. So dumb.
all right, well we got that out of the way. We got some waiver targets. The only other thing I had wrote down here, which is a waiver target, is Christian Kirk. I mean, he had another nice game. Rondell Moore didn't, so we're still playing that game of like, who is it gonna be? But I think it's pretty clear it's gonna be either Kirk or Moore. That's gonna have the big games there. Just like where you at with it. I think there's value for both, but I kind of like I don't know, kind of like a couple other situations we talked about. It's just like feels kind of like a dart throw at this point until we get maybe a bigger sample size or
Yeah.
some more
That's
clarity.
I mean that's where it's at too. It's like both guys should be rostered. Somebody in every league that's not 8-team leagues should probably have Rondell Moore, Christian Kirk should probably be picked up in those leagues. But you can't. It's another one of those situations you're not ever gonna feel confident starting one of them because I mean one of them is likely to have a game, a decent game if not a good game. AJ Green had a damn statistically he had a good game this past week. So it's like it's just a kind of an unfortunate mess of a situation, but somebody's probably going to have a good game every week, and it's one of those where if you're kind of shooting for the moon that week, if you need a big splash play, or if you're thin at the position, you can play him. Otherwise, you're just holding on to these guys. It's unfortunate. I'm still gonna bet on more season long. That's where I want to go. Partly because we've seen this from Christian Kirk in the past, and it was never consistent. I mean, things do change even several years later. We mentioned Devontae Parker before when we were talking about this, but like I'm just giving that as an example of years of a guy not being consistent. So then you eventually finally decide you're not going to buy in, and then they have a year where they do it for an entire year. And like I remember that year Devontae Parker did that. I think that dude was available in our league for like 6-7 weeks in a row when he was being productive because everybody had already seen it, right? And nobody wanted to buy in, and it just never went away. So that can happen. And maybe Christian Kirk, maybe this is his year. I'm still for now going to lean to no, and I want to buy into more for season long, Rondell Moore. But both guys, you should own both. And for now, just don't play him unless you have to, or unless you need like that really big splash play. Then put him in your flex. That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you're really shooting for that home run or you have an injury or an issue, I'm still liking that flyer. I wish it was a little more clear. I wish it was more Rondale Moore, but yeah, that's just where we're at right now.
Right.
So I just learned that you can put polls in here if I have a separate window pulled up, so that's kind of cool. We get some viewers in here. I can put something up there.
That's cool.
Well, we talked about Josh Gordon was like the big name, but there's some other guys. Sorry, you were about to roll into something?
No, I was just sort of looking through my list of guys, and you've named most of them, but there is a very obvious one that we haven't talked about. That's not really owned anywhere. Well, I guess I'd have to look at his ownership percentage real quick. 17%, yeah. And that's a guy you got.
There's Marshall?
Nope. Chuba Hubbard.
Oh, bruh. So the thing about that though is Chuba Hubbard. Listen, if you go back and I'll post the timestamp. A couple streams ago, I was whispering Chuba Hubbard on the stream. Okay, if you go back 3 weeks ago and check our stream, I was talking about Chuba Hubbard. Opportunity is a very big factor and the biggest factor for this player. So what it was is I really liked what I had seen, in a small sample size in the preseason, and it just felt to me like if he had an opportunity, I wanted to be a part of it. So I ended up drafting him with one of my last picks. Happens to be that CMC goes down, and now the trouble is for people that might not be as big on him, the Panthers are talking about CMC only missing a couple weeks. So really that's going to be a big factor. I think Chuba Hubbard is a starting fantasy running back until CMC comes back. I'm leaning more towards CMC missing more time than the team's alluding to, because we thought CMC was only going to be out a few weeks last year too. Hamstrings, leg injuries are a little less predictable, those soft tissue injuries. So he needs to be picked up. I think that number's going to go up quite a bit tonight, tomorrow morning, and if it doesn't, I'd be shocked.
It's going way up. I think he's likely to be the number one pickup this week, probably, because he's a running back. A, B, we're assuming for now it's a multi-week injury with Christian McCaffrey. Of course, it's possible it's not, and that is kind of like the unfortunate thing here is like if you really need a running back and you're wanting to go all in on him, that's the unfortunate part of this is there is a possibility that it's 1 week. But like if you really need a running back and every week the win matters just the same to get a win in fantasy. It's no less important 1 week or another. If you really need a running back, he's obviously a great spot start. And it could be a multi-week thing, which would be even better. And I haven't really, of all the names we've mentioned, I don't know anybody that would be more intriguing than Chuba Hubbard. So I think he's probably the number one ad this week.
Yeah, and he should be. Even if it's a 1 week thing, that's a 1 week that you get to at the very least throw this guy in your flex into a great situation with a good amount of volume. He started slow, but also it was like the defense was just sending guys as soon as CMC came out of the game. So like once they got the offense going again, once they found a couple holes in the new approach, the in-game adjustment. I thought Chuba Hubbard looked pretty good. There were some carries going to Royce Freeman. I think he is going to be limited to the tough sledding kind of stuff. They might give him a pass or two just to kind of try to keep defenses honest. But, really, I think we already saw in, half of a game what it's going to look like. Chuba Hubbard had a ball get on him quick where it was more of an anticipation throw that would have went for a touchdown, which might have had the hype train going wild right now. But he had a couple looks that I think in the passing game that I think would have turned into a huge game for him. Even just coming in like an emergency fill-in situation. So I really like him. I think CMC's gonna. It might be more just me hoping because I have Chuba Hubbard, but I think CMC might miss more time than they're thinking.
Oh, I think that's. Yeah, if I can agree. I think if I had to bet on one or the other, him being back next week, after this missing one game or missing multiple weeks, I lean towards missing multiple weeks with just the way the injury looked based off what I read online from the doctors online that have shared their opinion on it. It seems like it would be a multi-week injury. I don't think Chuba Hubbard is CMC. I'll just put that out there. Like I don't think he's as good, as talented as CMC is. But I think he's plenty capable. And if he's going to get the majority of the work, which we assume he is, I think he will be productive. Dallas' defense has kind of been playing better, and they do have Dallas this week. You're still playing him. There's no doubt about that. He's going to be involved in the pass game. Obviously, that's a bonus. And he's got speed. That's for sure too. So I liked what I saw out of him for the most part. I did take from it that I don't think he's going to be so good that when CMC comes back that he's going to be pushing CMC for some sort of split backfield. I don't think that's going to happen. But I do think that Hubbard, I liked what I saw, and I think he can be productive if given the chance. So I would definitely be playing him this week, and I'd be trying to pick him up if I needed a running back and a spot start.
Part of my interest with Chuba too was that maybe that, like I said, maybe that was me talking myself into it more, but With the injury to CMC, with the concern, I thought there was a chance that they might have been more interested in a timeshare. Definitely wasn't the case. So like that was just optimism, over optimism probably. But I
They
will
get scared
say,
from this less injury.
well, if
There's always that possibility that they want to scale his work back a little bit because of that. But we keep assuming that, and it just doesn't ever happen.
I know if this injury, okay, running backs fade fast, and CMC's looked good when he's been healthy for the last year. I don't think when he's on the field there's anything that we can take away from him. But if this injury lasts longer than this 2 to 3 week time frame, there's something to be said about it being a younger coach too. But I'm getting really worried about CMC's durability if this injury lasts longer than we're expecting. If they're refusing to put him on the IR, then right now or last Thursday they thought that he was only going to be out 2 to 3 weeks. And if that ends up being 4 to 5 weeks, I'm actually getting really worried about the long-term durability for CMC too.
I think that's fair, given what we've seen last year too, and how much work he got over the last like several years, a couple years. There was 1 year there just recently. He was on the field like every single play, and getting 25, 30 touches a game for someone his size. It's kind of crazy. We have a question here. Start 3 in PPR. Oh, start 2 in PPR? Or is these 2 different questions? Maybe it's 2 different leagues. Okay, so
looks
start
like
3
receivers and running backs.
Oh, okay. So start 3 in PPR. Debo, DK, yes for DK. Don't have any read the rest of the names yet. Beasley, Chase, or Tim Patrick. I would start Debo, DK, and Chase. That would be my 3 for that. Disagree, Dub, or agree?
I agree. I'm not gonna get cute with it. I saw that Debo's probably gonna get a lot of Jair Alexander, but I'm not getting cute. Debo runs all the routes. He makes contested catches. Like, you just take what you get. You take the risk on that. He's been playing really well.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's PPR, and Debo did have a disappointing week this past week, but usually they like to get him the ball often, and especially even a lot of that, like, I mean, they'll throw him the ball at the line of scrimmage a lot. That was something they used to do with him a lot, and he's had one bad week. I'm not going to bench him all of a sudden because of that. Beasley, if you want to argue that Beasley may provide you with a little bit of a safer floor, that's fine, but he also did just have the week before, in half-point PPR leagues, he had like a 5-point day. So is he really that safe? I don't know. Start 2 in PPR. Gaskin, Montgomery, Robinson, meaning James Robinson, I assume, or Miles Sanders. I'm going to have to pull up my matchups for that one. Give me a sec. If you want to, if either of you want to go, you can, but I got to pull up those matchups.
That's a tough one, man.
I mean, they're all in a similar territory for me as far as like overall opinion go. They're all kind of volume guys that none of them are like matchup proof. I'm looking at them like matchups gonna have a lot to say on who I'm picking. I think,
dude, did you guys see Sanders had 2 carries?
His
first carry was a big one, but yeah, it was late.
It was 2 for 70 or 2 for 27.
Yeah. And the thing is too is they're playing the Chiefs. What are they going to do with that? There's potential there for the Chiefs to put up a lot of points, and the Eagles not able to really keep up, and just kind of like what happened with them in the last game they just played, where they're not able to, and I'm having a hard time trusting Hurts right now, based on what we've seen for him to be able to stay productive. That one is tough. I'm probably going to roll with Montgomery playing the Lions. With the Dolphins, Gaskins, they're playing the Colts, and I haven't haven't felt great about that Miami backfield in the first place, like throughout, even to start the season. And I haven't really seen anything to change my mind on that. So that's really tough for me to buy into that situation right now. So for me, it's going to be Montgomery, and then I'm looking at either Robinson or Miles Sanders, and that's a tough one between those two. The Jags get, we just had this pulled up a second ago, but they get the Bengals, and the Bengals have been a little bit underrated on defense with the way they've played recently.
Mm.
Where would you guys lean on those two?
I'd probably go Robinson.
Yeah.
Just based off of straight production right there.
Probably
like
would
you said,
too.
they're playing the Chiefs. They're not going to just automatically after last week be like, you know what? I think Sanders needs 20 carries. That just ain't going to happen this week. It might eventually, but it ain't this week.
It's one of those things where I could see Miles Sanders getting a screen in a game where it's, maybe there's a lot of scoring that happens. I could see Miles Sanders getting a couple catches and getting in some open field and maybe, getting some production in that way and being all right. But that is a close call. It's a tough call, but I think I'd probably go Montgomery and Robinson too.
Yeah, I think Montgomery's the safest pick there. Robinson is going to get you some points. If you're looking to catch lightning in a bottle, you go Miles Sanders. He's got the most upside out of all four of those guys, but I wouldn't be expecting it.
Scary thing with Montgomery, man, is that it's just like, can the Bears freaking can they get some drives going? I mean,
yeah.
Damn.
We're definitely going to see better things out of Justin Fields. I think that was just.
You're not going to see worse.
Oh, I think that was just a rookie game. We've been excited about what he can bring to that offense as a whole. So, Detroit's got a lot of injuries in the defensive backfield. This could be a nice little get-right game at home. Get them back on track.
Right. Keep to rest of season. Cousins, Teddy, Carr, Sam Darnold. Well, none of those guys, for me anyway, none of those guys stand out so much that it's obvious, and because of that reason, I don't like. I've said this anyway a couple times over the last couple of weeks, but it's really hard to look at a schedule and just think what schedule's easy and what schedule's hard, because shit's gonna change from right now and into the next month or so. Matchups we thought were easy are not going to be, and matchups we thought were scary are going to turn out not to be, because that's just how this works. It's always been this way. But when they're that close, it's probably what I'm going to look at is at least like say the next 4 weeks out and not playing any further ahead than that. And the matchups that I like the most in the next like month, those are the two quarterbacks from there that I'm going to go with. Immediately when I saw it, I wanted to say, as crazy as it sounds, I wanted to say Sam Darnold, and then I'm between Teddy and Carr, and I'm probably letting Cousins go. But, like, bro, your guess is as good as mine on that, for real.
I don't think it sounds good when you say it. Okay, let me just start this out like this. In the last 3 weeks, Derek Carr has thrown a minimum of 382 passing yards. Okay? He's gone for 382, 386, and 435. Okay, that's sarcasm. That's the Matthew Berry approach. Okay? But this was against three teams that we expected to have good defenses coming into the year, and I don't think we were wrong on all three of them. So I think Derek Carr stands out to me in that group by quite a bit, because he did it against Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and Miami. 2 of those games were at home. One was on the road against Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh had some injuries too, so I understand that. But, I mean, that's a lot of production against 3 teams that I think all would have agreed before the season started had good defenses. Yeah. So I think for me at this point, you're not expecting it every week, but you're saying, like, I should feel okay starting Derek Carr or pretty good starting Derek Carr every week, unless there's an injury to that team or, something changes. But, yeah, I'm definitely going Derek Carr. Sam Darnold has been the opposite end of the matchup game. He's been knocked because they had a couple easier matchups in Houston and the Jets. So little bit concerned about that, but I do think he's looked good. I think he's looked pretty comfortable. Um, I I can't allow myself to invest in Teddy Bridgewater, so it would be between Darnold and Cousins for me for the second one. Um, I like the targets on both
To
teams too,
real
the
quick,
weapons.
real quick, Dub. Teddy gets the Ravens, the Steelers, the Raiders, and the Browns the next month. Not a great schedule on paper the next month.
Yeah, we're out on that. Um, so I guess for me it would come down to how you feel about the competition, the level of competition that Sam Darnold has played against so far this year versus like Cousins has been not super exciting, but also not a bum, for years. I think he's just kind of like the boring pick, and it's like, is Sam
Right.
Darnold real? Is it the competition he's played against? And if you're trying to take that chance, I think Darnold probably has the upside, but I think Cousins is going to be a pretty consistent producer for you too. So, I don't know.
Yeah, you probably can't let Carr go, just given what we've seen so far, right? I mean, you're
Yeah.
probably right on that.
Yeah, I mean he's
Yeah.
been good and he's been distributing the ball better. It hasn't been just like Waller, I mean it's still been a lot of Waller, but he's getting other guys involved and it just it I don't like I said I don't like saying it, but like it just feels a little bit different with him this year.
It's those are close, man. And like I said, I was just, as Dub was talking, I was pulling up the schedules of those guys. Go with your gut at the end of the day with them, but if it is my roster, I would go with Carr and Sam Darnold because of the unknown of Sam Darnold. Maybe he can continue to do this for the rest of the year, and if he can, then that would be a better put together year than Cousins most of his years.
Yeah.
And Cousins production year in and year out has just always been replaceable. Like you can always find that on waiver wire. So I mean, if you cut Cousins, he's probably going to be available for you to pick up again if you want to.
Well, and
Unless it's in a 2 quarterback league, or people really value them, then maybe not. But
and anything that you can take away from Darnold as far as matchups go, you can put back in that pot for the fact that he hasn't unlocked Terrace Marshall or Robbie Anderson yet. Like those guys have been out there. I think they're both good receivers, and he hasn't really even made them much of a thing. So he takes a
right.
little bit of a. There's going to be a little bit of adversity there. I know you had talked a few times about how involved CMC is in the passing game, and I think Chuba Hubbard can handle some of that. But
Yeah.
if he can make if he can get some efficient looks out to those other guys that haven't really been used that much, they're good. And I mean, there's a lot of upside there with those weapons.
No
Robbie
doubt.
Anderson, I thought was the safest pick coming into the year, and it's been all DJ Moore. Robbie's done next to nothing. So I mean, if Robbie Anderson gets a couple, a few more good looks every game, that could be a big deal.
Well, the cornerback for the Cowboys, Diggs from Bama, he's been playing pretty damn good this year, and I imagine he'll be on DJ Moore this week. Maybe Robbie gets a little something going this week. I certainly wouldn't start the dude if I had him, and I wouldn't be trading for him or anything either, unless you can get him super super cheap. I honestly still would. It'd have to be super cheap, just for the opportunity. But maybe it happens this week with him with no CMC. So yeah, I do agree. Hubbard's going to get his targets, but it just probably won't be quite as much as CMC would have demanded. And I think DJ Moore is going to have I think he's going to have a tough matchup this week, even though I think that dude's an absolute baller. He can still make it happen. But Robbie Anderson might be open, might get some more looks this week. It also kind of feels like it seems like the Panthers are at some point got to be like, all right, look, we got to get this dude more involved. Like we just paid him, we just got this contract again. He's a capable, good player. Like we need to, what do they always say? Manufacture some touches. We need to
Yeah,
manufacture some touches for Robbie Anderson.
just force him the ball a little bit.
Yeah, but man, I tell you what, that dude looked super unhappy in the Panthers last game. Like every play, his body language slumped over, looked all pissed when the camera would show his face. It just didn't seem like he was having a good time.
No, and I think he's put a lot of work into because he's grown as a receiver the last 2-3 years, and like really somebody that I wasn't interested in earlier in his career is somebody that I've like enjoy watching running, all the routes. I mean, I think he's a great asset for that offense. I think Darnold's got a lot of upside with those guys. Plus, I mean, Terrace Marshall is like 6'3", 6'4", running the slot. Like, there's a lot of security there. And
Sam
they
Darnold
just traded their tight end.
Yeah, they did. Well, hell, probably though too, because they're using like 2 or 3 of them. That's what they just did this past week. They're like, yeah, we got guys at tight end, just take one.
I'm pretty sure that they traded him because they got tired of getting confused in practice. The guy's name was D. Arnold. So they had Darnold and D. Arnold. They were like, I've had enough of this shit. What can we get?
Sam's he's been there for a few weeks. Well, he's been there longer than that, but they've played a few games and he's already pulling those kind of moves. He's like, look, you got to get this dude out of here.
Yeah, like, these announcers are getting our names mixed up. I'm not having that.
Yeah. Get rid of him. I'm just gonna throw to DJ 10 more times. Just get him out of here.
A waiver. I just happened to have the Raiders schedule pulled up a little bit here, when we were looking at Derek Carr and the quarterbacks and stuff. A waiver claim that I'm not making this week that you might be inclined to is Peyton Barber. Like, just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I know.
Because you're looking at it, he had a game. He also had a few catches, which is weird. And it might look good right now, but I'm letting someone else fall on that grenade.
I hear you, and I'll comment on that in a second, but get to chat again. Should I drop Tyson Williams for Hubbard? I would ask you, what else do you have on the end of your bench? Because I don't love that idea. I would probably rather start Hubbard than Tyson Williams this week. But for a season-long outlook, even though Tyson Williams' role is clearly not guaranteed, we definitely know that Hubbard is the backup to CMC when CMC comes back. And we just don't know when that is. That's why that makes that tough. So if you've got some other guys on the end of your bench, I would think there'd be better drops than Tyson Williams.
Yeah, it was a rough it was a rough week for Tyson Williams this week. I get that. And I thought the matchup was going to allow for him to have a pretty good game. I think I even mentioned that a couple guys should have been starting him on the last stream. So it was more of a surprising thing. That everything about that game felt fluky as far as like the game plan was clearly for Lamar Jackson to come in and throw it deep. So I don't know if they were trying to catch the defense off guard or exploit the injuries on the defensive backfield, but like it was very clear from their first drive that they wanted to throw the ball down the field. And I think Tyson Williams was the biggest victim of that game plan, but I don't think that changes much as far as how I feel about the player or the situation. I think it was just more that they decided ahead of time that that's what they were going to do, and that wasn't going to be something that benefit Williams.
No. I mean, the other running backs weren't productive either. It's not like Freeman came in and showed out and now you're worried about him taking Tyson's spot or anything. You've got Zeke, Gibson, Mike Davis, and Mitchell. Those are your running backs.
I might be more inclined to drop Mitchell. I say that because he's got some upside, but Sermon's healthy, and like everything about that backfield has been a headache. And the further into the season we get, the closer we get to Jeff Wilson returning too. I mean, we're 3 weeks in, and I have no idea what to think about the Niners backfield, which has me kind of out. If you already have a piece, I understand holding on to it just to see how it plays out. You have that opportunity. I think I'm trusting Tyson Williams more than Mitchell going forward, but I think regardless, with what we've seen recently from Williams, Mike Davis, and Mitchell, I would be looking to get some more upside out of one of those 3 spots for sure. I think that's going to benefit your team if you make more out of. I don't want all 3 of those guys on my team, I guess is what I'm saying. So like I would be looking to get some upside over. I would be looking to add some upside in place of one of them.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have, those running backs that you have. I'll say this, and then you can kind of make up the decision. I probably would dub. I probably would hold Tyson Williams over Mitchell too. They still think that means that Mitchell can have some good weeks, but also Mitchell did have 17 carries and had no production, like 41 yards in that game. already got banged up. Their running back, like Dub said, that 49ers backfield is an absolute mess. Not that really the Ravens is much better, clearly, after what we just saw, but as far as with Tyson Williams and Hubbard, if you're set on Tyson instead of Mitchell, Hubbard would be probably a better start this week, and maybe for even as long as CMC's out. CMC could be back next week, or it could be multiple weeks. So you're buying into what we assume is a short-term situation with Hubbard, but while he is the guy, he should be more productive than Tyson. It's really not a guarantee, though. We've seen one game. It wasn't even a full game. We've seen one game from Hubbard. We're projecting that he's going to be able to be productive based on what we've seen and what we liked, what we saw from him. But for me, like, I usually have a season-long outlook, and I would stick with Tyson Williams because of that. You're 0-3. But I guess my thing is, though, like, you're going to start Zeke and you're going to start Gibson. So are you looking to start one of these guys in your flex? If you are and you're 0-3, yeah, I'd probably pick up Hubbard and I'd put him in my flex. And then just try to get some wins under your belt. I get the better question would have been, it's probably too late for you now, but I think probably you could have made a trade with those guys. I think you probably could have traded instead of having to drop one of those guys. I think you probably could have made a trade for one to get somebody. Any defenses I should trade target? I have the Bills and the Broncos right now and have both Kelsey and Waller. I mean, bro, just flex one of them.
Yeah. They both put up wide receiver numbers, and you're taking Waller off or Kelsey off of someone else's roster. Like, you don't have to go up against either one of those guys.
Right. It's really not a bad idea to do that and not give one of them, to another player to be able to use. But, however, if you can get a lot for one of them, and you should be able to, and I would try to trade Waller over Kelsey, even though I love Waller. Kelsey is the guy. He is the number one tight end still. Don't trade it for a defense. You have two good defenses there, and you should be able to get a lot for either one of those guys.
Ooh, flex is only wide receiver and running back. You're shooting way higher in a trade then. Kelsey, you should be able to get just about anybody for Kelsey if you were to ride with Waller. But you can get quite a bit for Waller too, I think, right now.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, I mean, any quarterback should be on the table for one of those tight ends. And I think there's only a handful of running backs or receivers that you couldn't get for Kelsey straight up. I mean, the decision here is, like, are you riding Kelsey's points out and seeing what you can get for Waller, or do you ride Waller out because you're going to get more trade value with Kelsey? But I think you could get almost anybody for Kelsey, and I would be thinking about it more like you're holding the chips and, like, you get to pick what you get in return, and it should be a lot.
So, because he was asking us about his receiver and running back position earlier, so I'm assuming we kind of know the roster. Debo, DK, Beasley, Chase, Tim Patrick for wide receivers. Maybe there's like a stud in here that wasn't mentioned because they're an obvious start. I'm not sure. But then Gaskin, Montgomery, Robinson, Miles Sanders. If I could package one of those running backs and like a Waller, I would expect to be able to get a really good running back in return, and I would consider doing that depending on who the running back is. But really, I think you should even be able to get a 2-for-2 trade there. I really think you should be able to get, like if you offered Waller and Robinson or Waller and Miles Sanders, I think you should be able to get a really good running back and something else, potentially. I mean, that's at least where I would start and just sort of put some feelers out there with something like that. Because receiver-wise, I like your wide receiver group. For the most part, I like those guys well enough. Yeah, I love DK. Chase seems to be like he's actually going to be a reliable option this year. Every wide receiver can have bad weeks. That's going to happen. Don't get discouraged when it does. But Chase seems like he's going to be a pretty good bet. And, he had a rough week, but Debo's been solid so far this year, and I expect him to still be like a focal point of that offense. But the running backs, there's a little bit to be desired with that group.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think what I'm looking to do with that 2-for-2 is I'm looking to find somebody that has a you start with the player you want to get back, and I think you're looking for a really nice running back if you're going to package two of the. If you're looking to package Waller and like Robinson or Sanders, it might be a bad week for Sanders trade value, but when I'm packaging them, I'm looking for a really nice running back, but also I'm keeping an eye on like maybe there's another piece on a owner's bench that they feel a little lower on, that has a lot of upside or that we're really excited for.
Waller for CMC. Bro, is Hubbard available in your league? Like, is he on waivers? If you can get Hubbard, if he's on waivers, I mean, I don't know. I know Dub's a little worried about CMC with his health, and which is totally viable. It's totally viable to be. Is viable even the right word there? Totally reasonable to be worried about that. But I'm probably still making that trade, especially if I can get Hubbard.
Yeah, you're doing it either way.
No, he's not.
Especially when you can't start two tight ends. So like you're not getting anything out of that, which would have me a little more motivated. Yeah. So like, listen, when CMC's healthy, you're not getting that trade. So the thing is like it's all going to be about when you think he's coming back. They are saying it's a short time frame, which is all we really have to work off of now. And when CMC's healthy and producing, you're never going to get CMC for Waller straight up. So like,
no,
I'm going for it too, but just know like this is a very volatile move, and you're saying, hey, this is the absolute best value I'll ever get for this player, and he's a total stud when he's healthy, and I'm willing to just accept whatever happens after today. But that's a great opportunity to add a guy. I mean, we could be talking a month from now, he's healthy, and he's getting his 30 touches a game and 30 points, fantasy points per game, and like you're just showing out, you know?
And I would do the trade too. I agree. And then it's probably going to be, you're probably not going to be able to get Hubbard right now, but whoever has him, I would reach out and see what they might be interested in letting him go for, if they will. If they want too much, then just wait until CMC comes back and then go see what Hubbard's value is, because it should be a hell of a lot lower. And I wouldn't mind having him as a handcuff at this going into that point in the season, because that'll be potentially 2-3 weeks or so from now. And that starts getting to the point where I'm more interested in having handcuffs for guys. That's how I would kind of play that. And yeah, if you can't play both tight ends, probably doing that trade.
Well, there's a secondary opportunity here too. If you make that trade and then you end up with CMC, you're off. I'm then thinking like, okay, I'm gonna go talk to the person that has Chuba, and I'm going to probably start with offering Miles Sanders, but I'm asking for a player in return that I like too. Maybe somebody that's got some upside or that has underperformed so far this year that you feel a little better about rest of season, and just seeing where that goes. Just kind of seeing where that conversation takes you. Maybe you can get an upgrade somewhere else, but yeah. Because the thing is you're putting yourself in a situation at that point where like you're probably not starting Miles Sanders soon anyway. And so I think there would be value in trading someone that probably still has upside in Sanders for like a safer bet when you're not going to play the guy. I'm assuming you're not looking to play Sanders too much anyway, and you can lock up that Carolina backfield.
You lock up, yeah. You're going to play probably Montgomery or Robinson and then Hubbard. And then when CMC comes back, obviously he goes in your lineup, and then one of those other guys you have. And then you still got Kelsey, and you've got some good wide receivers.
Yeah.
Be a good team.
That's an interesting one. Vic says, traded A-Rob for A.J. Brown, full PPR. I'm 3-0, and I like Brown better for rest of season. Hopefully he gets healthy soon. Thanks, guys. As far as direct player value goes, I think that the Tennessee situation is still, something that I don't feel like sure about, or if I haven't seen enough of, but I really like the idea behind the trade where you're saying like, I'm off to a good start and I think I can invest in the future, and this is what I feel best with going forward. So like, I love, that was on your mind, and it was like, okay, I put the hard work in early and now I can start, maybe prepping a little bit earlier, looking forward a little further than you could if you were 0-3 or if you had a couple losses.
Yeah, that's the right idea. It's the right idea. Same thing with like Kevin. He's saying he's 3-0. And if you're trading for CMC, it's a similar thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dubs and I happen to be pretty big fans of Allen Robinson, but it hasn't been good. It hasn't been good this year, and it's not his fault. It's the offense as a whole. And I do also like AJ Brown to rebound when he gets healthy and have a stronger midseason and finish to the season. Hopefully, this isn't one of those like plagued years for him that we see every now and again. I hope that's not the case, and I don't think it is. I'd be willing to buy him. So yeah, if you like him a lot more than Robinson, I think that's a good trade for you.
For sure. I think they're both really good receivers. It's probably pretty close for general evaluation for me, but
right.
And Julio's had a couple big games now too, so like when AJ Brown has a little open field or a little less attention, man, he's hit some of those little hitch routes for big plays.
Yeah. He has. And Robinson has just been rough.
Yeah.
I would take a shot on Marlon Mack. Would you take a shot on Marlon Mack? Yes, I would. We actually were talking about that a little bit earlier. I wouldn't, if you have waiver priority or fab, I don't know which. I don't know if I would spend. I probably wouldn't use like my number one waiver claim if that's what I am for priority, and I wouldn't spend very much fab, just because you don't know if the trade's going to happen first, and then if it does, you don't know what team he's going to. And there are some teams he could go to where he just may not have any value. But there are some interesting teams, if he did go to, where it would be really interesting and I would want him. So, yes, but I just wouldn't invest heavy because it's just too many unknowns.
For sure. I mean, I've played that game before. I still like to have one of those opportunities on a regular basis just to see what happens. But like this preseason, I would have bet some money that one of the Texans backs was going to be moved early, and that hasn't happened yet either. It just seems so obvious. So like, it's hard. The unknown is just that's what it is. It's an unknown. But yeah, there's a few places he could go that would be really interesting.
It's always roster dependent too, right? If you're really hurting at running back and you just need to take a shot and waivers are picked clean, if it's one of those deeper league type situations like that, like I'm still not wanting to invest too heavy, but I'm willing to go a little more in to try to get him. The chance, but
another team, because I was looking at NFC only, I had mentioned that stood out to me when we were talking about Marlon Mack and potential homes.
Mm-hmm.
Seattle keeps talking about Rashad Penny. They thought he was going to be back down the stretch last year, and that didn't happen. And then he came in. I think he did get a couple carries, but like he's nowhere near where I think they've wanted him to be at this point. And they're not exactly the same player, but I think they offer some of the same things. But like Marlon Mack in Seattle, secondary to Chris Carson, could also be like really interesting to me. I think Mack has a little bit of receiving ability, but I think for me it's more the big play kind of thing that he showed, the last time he was healthy, that I think Seattle wants too. And that was another place that I had seen like probably not thrilled with their offensive line. I don't know what kind of volume their number 2 guy would get anyway, but Rashad Penny was pretty productive, before he got hurt this last time, and somebody that was on everybody's radar. I think that role, if they have someone they feel good about, could be interesting. But 1, he'd have to go there. 2, it'd have to work out that way. 3, Penny would have to not be a thing too.
I don't think he would be, especially if they were a team that actually wanted to go get a Marlon Mack. I think that's them saying that we're totally cool with not involving Penny in all of this. So like in that hypothetical situation, I think you're saying Mack is the 2 there. I know I'm only in, it's like I said to you earlier, if I pick up Marlon Mack, I'm hoping to see him go to a team where I think he could be the guy And as long as Chris Carson is healthy, which, he definitely has a history too of being banged up and missing some games here and there. But I think he's probably still the guy there, even if Marlon Mack goes, and Marlon Mack would need an injury to like really take over and be that dude. So I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't love it either. I'm hoping the Dolphins, honestly, he would be able to do a lot more work and give himself a shot to compete. Yeah, that would be interesting. There's a lot of guys over there right now, but I don't think any of them are particularly special players where they demand to be on the field regardless of who else comes into that running back room. If Marlon Mack is Marlon Mack of a couple years ago, I think he would have potential. He would have potential to take over there.
Yeah.
That feels like that'd be it feels like that'd be down the road though, right? Like if you saw hypothetically, if the Dolphins got Marlon Mack this week in a trade, feels like that would take some time for him to kind of get his chance.
Yeah, for sure. The small cap, the like eerie feeling I've had about that backfield as far as Gaskin goes, because it was like we were assuming he was going to have a lot of the touches there too, which was intriguing for his value solely, I think, for that reason. But that Malcolm Brown vulturing aspect is like it's like a little cap that I hate. But no, yeah, I agree. I think that if he's healthy, if he's good, he could take over that backfield.
Yeah, he could take over a few if he's that guy still. I don't know. We usually get excited about these trade talks and potential. It's pretty rare that it works out in fantasy football favor.
Yeah. Well, and you'd like to see him go to a good team too. I mean, like I'm looking at it and like opportunity-wise, like he goes to the Jets or the Falcons, like I think he's got a chance to take over those backfields too. But I think that might mean I'd be a little less interested in those.
God, if he goes to the Jets, I'm totally out.
If he goes to the Jets, I'm going to send Michael Carter Jr. an apology letter.
Yeah.
We'll see, man. It's going to be more. I think it's going to be more about. I think it's going to be more about Marlon Mack's production than anything. I think that he could go several places and end up having a really nice year. I think that's the biggest factor. It's just what is he capable of doing this year, but we'll see. I still like the Chargers, man.
That would be interesting. It would.
I have Eckler, so like volume wise, that would hurt me a little bit, but it would also make that
he still stays involved, better. And Eckler would still stay involved, and it might even be good for his season-long outlook, just being able to stay healthy.
Yeah.
Interesting.
He's going to end up going to Carolina, and he's going to screw up our Marlon Mack and our Chuba Hubbard conversations. I'd be so mad.
I wouldn't even like that. It wouldn't even make much sense. If that happens, I'd be like, CMC's out for the year.
True. Keep Waller.
Yeah, don't make that trade. Cancel.
No, it's fun though.
What do you think about wrapping her up?
Yeah, I'm good with that. I mean, there's nothing else that's really standing out. Couple things we saw. OBJ played and he had a decent game. He also had a nice little slant route that he caught and took some contact on and stayed involved after. So like, I think OBJ is back. I mean, he's kind of always had big games and mediocre games, but that was a takeaway I had from this week that isn't really waiver related, but something that I was happy to see for football in general.
Yeah, it is good.
We talked about it off stream a little bit for waiver priorities or for waiver prospects, I guess. Like, I think we both agreed that Deshaun Jackson's probably not going to be a big deal. I know he had a big game and it could be a thing, but I think it was just a week or two ago I was saying the same thing about Van Jefferson. So not only are you like taking the dart throw on the deep ball thing, but then you're also not knowing which player is getting those looks. So it's going to hurt to watch that production sit in free agency or happen on someone else's lineup, but like you're gonna miss a lot more than you're gonna hit on those guys, I think.
Yeah. Hard to believe that that's going to be consistent. Just given the nature of what Deshaun Jackson has always been, and you still have Van Jefferson there who can do similar things that Jackson does. He had 6 targets. You still obviously got Cup. Robert Woods has been a weird one, huh? But he's still there and he's out on the field.
I was trying to watch what they were doing with him, and it looked like they're running a lot of like super shallow, like zone pulling kind of routes with Woods, and I didn't like that at all. Like he ran, they had the field spread out, and they had him off to the left side on a play, and they just had him run one of those like flats where he just like took off to the flat, and his whole job on that play was to just pull the shallow zone guy up to open something else up for somebody else. And I only noticed it because I saw Stafford kind of look where it was like, I think that he wanted to get him the ball, but that zone guy came up, and it was like, nope, we're good here. I'm not going to do that. I guess I'm just saying it was a very little that I actually noticed what Robert Woods was doing because there was a lot going on that offense, and they were going deep a lot too. But it looked like Woods was more of a decoy than anything else. I don't know what's going on, but I don't like it. I think we said last stream or last week that we were going to give him a couple more weeks, and I think that still holds true. I think we got one more week here before I'm really freaking out. And it's going to be I'm going to flip a switch. Like right now I'm still saying like I'm probably not worried about it, but I'm aware of it. And then it's like if we have another dud this week,
another real dud this week, and it's the panic button. We're a little worried. Well, we're a lot worried. Agreed.
It's weird. I agree. Like that's just the best way to put it, though. It's weird. Like he's a really good player.
Yeah. Yeah, and that Deshaun Jackson thing is just, it's those situations it's just funny. Just real quick, you see those and you're like, well, can't trust that. Can't rely on that. Not gonna buy into it. Then you have that thought that creeps in where it's like, well, what if it was? And you get them super cheap, and then it continues to stay that way. Like it's always a possibility, but like you said, you would have thought that about Van Jefferson. Just a week ago too, we were thinking that about Rondell Moore, and then look what happens this week. Like Kirk and AJ Green have big games, and Moore doesn't do much of anything.
Yeah,
it's just this week to week shit, man.
Agreed. It's today's league, I think, with these receivers at least. There's a lot of passing yards happening in today's league, and you just don't always know where they're gonna go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's it. I mean, that's it for me. You got anything else you wanted to touch on, or Cam? Cam's out.
I got nothing.
All right.
You guys took it all. I do.
Well, we had some more involvement in chat tonight. We definitely appreciate that.
Yeah.
I learned another new thing tonight, so when we get some traffic in here, I'm going to start maybe putting up some polls on some side topics or things that maybe we've discussed. I think that might be a little fun thing.
There you go.
Like tonight, it would have probably been Nyuk, where it's like if we have something that we're like, I saw this and you saw that. It's like, okay, well, what's everyone else thinking? Let's gauge the crowd here. That could be fun.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Be down for that.
But yeah, definitely appreciate the love. Anybody that's still in here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Get yourself a notification anytime we go live. We're going Sunday mornings and Tuesday nights, doing waiver updates, helping set some lineups. Loving working through trades with guys. That's probably my favorite part so far. So definitely keep those coming.
And the most stressful.
Most stressful, but I love it. So yeah, I appreciate the love, and we'll catch you